If you've been watching the global reaction to the crisis in Ukraine, there is an important lesson that cannot be missed. When the media does its job of conveying the reality of a foreign military invasion and occupation, and puts a human face on the real suffering of a people under attack, the world becomes rightly outraged because no one should have to endure something like this. And that outrage can translate into a widespread effort to stand in solidarity with the victims and to apply meaningful pressure on the aggressors to end their aggression. And that's precisely what we're seeing today, with ordinary people and countless companies and sports leagues pressuring Russia, and with our own government stating unequivocally that they will support and defend the right of the Ukrainian people to resist foreign military occupation.
Does the White House support the Ukrainian people's right to resist the occupation and essentially through any means necessary?
Well, we certainly support the rights of the Ukrainian people to fight back. I would note that we have seen many Ukrainians, many members of the Ukrainian military, and certainly President Zelensky and leadership fight bravely, courageously over the course of the last 12 days. So yes, we support their right to push back and to fight back against that.
Now here's the problem. There are other instances in which people are the victims of a foreign military invasion and occupation. But when the aggressors happen to be our government or one of its allies, then everything changes. Take the Israeli military occupation of Palestine. It has been going on for decades, and it entails some of the worst crimes imaginable, including bombing civilians and hospitals, shooting unarmed protesters and journalists and medics, physically abusing and imprisoning children, stealing Palestinian land and destroying Palestinian homes, and imposing a brutal system of apartheid. And these crimes are condemned by the United Nations and by every major human rights organization in the world, including American and Israeli human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and B'Tselem. And where does our government stand on Israel's military occupation and war crimes against Palestinians? It's not only indifferent to these crimes, they actually support the aggressors, providing Israel with more weapons and funding than any other military on the planet, and shielding Israel from any measure of accountability on the international stage. And whereas President Biden finds Russia's assault on Ukraine outrageous and wants to isolate Russia because of it, his position on Israel is the exact opposite. He wants to maintain support for Israel's war crimes, and he attacks progressives in Congress who want to condition or stop military funding to Israel because of Israel's serious human rights violations. The double standard of our government here is outrageous, and a growing number of Americans are pushing back on it. People of all ages and backgrounds across the US are seeing Israel's treatment of Palestinians for what it is. It's oppressive, it's deadly, and it's downright unacceptable. When Israel bombs family homes in Gaza, and Palestinian parents are forced to search for their children's bodies in the rubble, and when Israel forces Palestinians out of the only homes that they've ever known in order to steal more Palestinian land, Americans who see this are rightly outraged, and they're demanding an end to US funding for Israel's violent and oppressive military. And we have a responsibility to make sure that more Americans see this reality. And as we're building a better world where oppressors are held accountable and where we stand in solidarity with those resisting oppression, that solidarity must extend to Palestinians and to all oppressed people around the globe.